Sometimes the cage is not made of iron, but of what we believe we cannot do. Once upon a time, in a quiet seaside town, there lived a girl named Mira. She was 12, curious, thoughtful, always watching the sky from her small window. Every morning before school, she would sit by the edge of her balcony, watching the gulls sweep across the dawn. They seemed to dance with the wind, free and fearless. Mira loved them, not because they flew, but because they knew they could. She often whispered to herself, "I wish I could fly like that, just once." But she never tried. In her world, flying meant dreaming too high. And dreaming too high meant falling too hard. So she stayed low, quiet, safe, always on the ground, always imagining what it must feel like to soar. Her heart was full of wings, but her thoughts were full of walls. At school, Mira was the kind of child who drew suns in the corner of her notebook, but never raised her hand. She knew the answers, but fear kept her quiet. Once, her art teacher invited the class to paint what freedom feels like. Mira sketched a girl standing on a cliff, hair wild in the wind, wings faintly forming on her back. It was the most beautiful piece in the room, but when her teacher asked her to share what it meant, Mira shook her head. "It's nothing," she said softly. "Just a drawing." The class moved on. The painting dried. The wings faded into silence. Day after day, Mira's dreams grew smaller, folded like paper birds she never dared to throw into the air. Mira's grandmother lived just a few streets away, a small apartment filled with plants, seashells, and the smell of old books. Whenever Mira visited, the old woman would smile and say, "You look like a bird who's forgotten the wind." Mira would laugh shyly. "Birds are born to fly, Grandma. I'm not." Her grandmother would only nod, as if she knew something the girl did not. One afternoon, while Mira was helping her water the plants, the old woman paused and looked toward the window. "Go see old Mr. Harlan by the lighthouse," she said suddenly. "Tell him I sent you." "Why?" Mira asked. Her grandmother smiled. "Because he once taught the wind to listen." The lighthouse stood on the edge of town, tall, white, and whispering with salt and sea. Mr. Harlan was an old man with weathered hands and kind eyes. He spent his days fixing broken kites that children brought him. When Mira arrived, he was mending a bright red kite torn across the middle. "So," he said without looking up, "you're the girl who wishes she could fly." Mira froze. "I never said that." "You didn't need to," he said, smiling faintly. "Your eyes did." He held up the torn kite. "Do you know what makes this kite fly?" he asked. "The wind," she guessed. He shook his head. "Not quite. The wind only pushes. What makes it fly is trust." He handed the kite to her. "Take it. Fix it. Then bring it here at sunrise." That night, Mira worked on the kite. The tear was deep, but she stitched carefully. Her hands trembled, afraid to break it further, afraid to fail. By dawn, the sky was a pale blush of silver. She carried the kite to the cliffs, where Mr. Harlan was waiting. "Go on," he said. "Let it go." She hesitated. The wind howled softly. What if it crashed? What if it tore again? Mr. Harlan looked at her and said quietly, "The sky doesn't ask if you're ready. It opens when you believe you are." She closed her eyes. Then she ran. The kite lifted, dipped, then caught a strong breath of wind. It soared, high, bright, alive. Mira gasped. For the first time, she felt it, that pull between fear and freedom. It wasn't just the kite that rose that morning. Something inside her did too. From that day on, Mira began to see flight everywhere. In the courage to raise her hand, in the calm to try again when she failed, in the quiet confidence that came from trust. When her teacher next asked who would present their art, Mira stood. Her voice shook, but she spoke anyway. And as she talked about freedom, about wings that grow not on backs but in hearts, her classmates listened, silent and still. Later that evening, she walked home by the sea. A flock of gulls passed overhead, wings cutting through the last light of day. Mira smiled softly. She still couldn't fly, but she finally knew she could. The sky belongs not to those born with wings, but to those who dare to open them. Maybe you felt like Mira before, standing at the edge of something new, wanting to rise but afraid of the fall. Maybe your wings aren't feathers, but words you've never spoken, dreams you've hidden, or courage you've buried under "what if?" Every one of us carries a sky within, wide, waiting, open. And like Mira, we spend years walking beneath it, forgetting that the ground is not the only place we belong. The world will always whisper reasons to stay safe, stay small, stay certain. But truth lives in a quieter voice, the one that says, try. So if you find yourself hesitating at the edge of a dream, remember, the first step of flight isn't leaping, it's believing that you can. You don't have to soar high. You only have to lift. And once you do, the wind, life itself, will meet you halfway. If this story found a quiet corner in your heart, like the video, let it rest there. Share it with someone who needs to know that when the world feels heavy, remember the child who didn't know she could fly, and the morning she finally trusted the wind. Because maybe today, the sky is waiting for you.